Hi and welcome back to my channel. Before I begin this analysis, I want us to watch this clip from the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, and we'll take it up from there.
Nous avions une relation sécuritaire. Elle était de deux natures en vérité. Il y a une partie, c'était notre engagement contre le terrorisme depuis 2013. On avait raison. Je crois qu'on a oublié de nous dire merci. C'est pas grave, ça viendra avec le temps. L'ingratitude, je suis bien placé pour le savoir, c'est une maladie non transmissible à l'homme. Mais je le dis pour tous les gouvernants africains qui n'ont pas eu le courage vis-à-vis de leurs opinions publiques de le porter, aucun d'entre eux ne serait aujourd'hui avec un pays souverain si l'armée française ne s'était pas déployée dans cette région. Et j'ai une pensée émue pour nos soldats qui, parfois, ont donné leur vie et pendant des années se sont battus. Nous avons bien fait. On est parti parce qu'il y a eu des coups d'État. Parce qu'on était là à la demande d'États souverains qui avaient demandé à la France de venir. À partir du moment où il y a eu des coups d'État, où les gens ont dit « notre priorité, c'est plus la lutte contre le terrorisme, c'est ceci ou cela, qu'importe », la France n'y avait plus sa place, parce que nous ne sommes pas les supplétifs de putschistes. Donc on est parti.
Really? This is shocking to me, and I'm surprised to be hearing some of the things Emmanuel Macron is talking about and how he believes African leaders needed to have been grateful to France for protecting most of the Francophone territories from terrorist groups like ISWAP, the Boko Haram, and the Al-Shabaab. A whole lot of it. But let's try to unpack things here. I think France is missing something here, particularly Emmanuel Macron. In 1940, in less than 10 days, under the Blitzkrieg strategy of Adolf Hitler, Germany had taken over France and other neighboring states that makes up France's territory. And it took African soldiers to recover and chase the German troops away from France's territory. And this was the biggest contribution of African soldiers to France. In First and the Second World War, African soldiers have played tremendous roles in ensuring that France that exists today didn't go into extinction. Let's not also forget that the thriller Senegalese was also instrumental to providing the forces that secured France. These forces included military guys from Morocco, from Senegal, from Algeria, Tunisia, and other African nations. Today, France that couldn't appreciate the sacrifice that African soldiers made to keep France as a country in one piece. The same France is coming to gaslight Africa. I don't think Macron understands and knows history properly, because if Emmanuel Macron understands history, he would have been grateful to Africa for feeding France for donkey years. It is embarrassing to hear under their security architecture, insecurity was even worse. Coups and counter-coups continue to happen unabated. And what did France do? France looked the other way and continued to foster their interests. And when it was time for the erstwhile colonies to seed relationship with them, all we hear is about ingratitude and how these nations needed to pay homage and appreciate France for doing next to nothing. I like the fact that Chad and Senegal has replied Emmanuel Macron appropriately, and I expect more African nations to do the same. France is also deepening some sort of new relationships with Nigeria, and Bola Ahmed Tinubu needs to be careful because Nigeria cannot survive in isolation. What sort of relationship does Emmanuel Macron want with Nigeria at a time when his former colonies and allies have rejected him? Statements like this from Emmanuel Macron is one that Nigerian leadership needs to also take into cognizance, because if France that benefited maximally from Africa cannot appreciate her former colonies that supported and provided military troops for the existence of France, then it is time for us to have a rethink with the kind of new partnerships we want to get into with France. This is an entitlement mentality, and I understand the colonizers will always feel entitled, like what we hear and see Emmanuel Macron demonstrate in France is an indication that he failed his people. And instead of blaming his failure on centuries of exploitation of Africa and telling his people truth, Emmanuel Macron was busy lying about how ungrateful we were. How has France really helped any of her colonies in the last 50 years? None of the colonies under France is doing well. Even Cameroon that exists today is a shadow of what it used to be back in the days of Amadou Ahidjo, because France needs to maintain its interest, and they don't care about whoever leads Cameroon, provided the status quo is maintained and France's interest is served. It is a pity that Emmanuel Macron will embarrass Africa the way he's trying to do, and I expect Djibouti and other African nations where France still has its military base to begin to have a rethink if they truly need these military bases where they have stationed these guys for many years. I love what has happened. But Africa needs to begin to move beyond the East or West bloc if Africa needs to develop. Because if we are engaged in proxy wars, the biggest casualties and victims will still be Africa, her resources, and their leaders. I'd love to read your comment on this developing story, and I say thanks for watching.